Today in Minute Films we gonna talk about a Korean masterpiece. In 1988, a businessman named Oh Dae-soo is arrested for drunkenness, missing his daughter's 4th birthday, showing them the angel's wings he bought for his daughter. Finally, he has to be bailed out by his old friend, Ju-won. While Ju-won is in a phone booth talking with Dae-soo's daughter, Yoon-hee, and his wife, Kim Ya-yeon, Dae-soo is kidnapped by unidentified people. Dae-soo was kidnapped and wakes up in a sealed hotel room, where food is delivered through a trap door, and is gassed into unconsciousness whenever he becomes suicidal, or when his holders need access to the room to maintain it, and cut his hair. Watching TV, Dae-soo learns that his wife has been murdered and he is the prime suspect. When one of his deliveries turns out to have an extra metal chopstick, he conceals it and uses it to slowly dig a hole into one of the walls. He passes the time shadowboxing, planning revenge and writing his diaries. 15 years pass since he was imprisoned. It is now 2003, a new millennium. Just before digging himself to freedom, Dae-soo is sedated and hypnotized. He wakes up on a rooftop and sees a man on the ledge ready to jump to his death. The man asks him, "Even though I am no better than a beast, don't I have the right to live?" Dae-soo leaves the man and the man killed himself, letting Dae-soo with a smile. Afterward, a mysterious beggar gives him money and a cell phone. Dae-soo enters a sushi restaurant to eat a live octopus where he meets Mido, a young chef. He receives a taunting phone call from his captor. The call left Dae-soo speechless. So he decided to eat the octopus to feel alive. The young chef is impressed but Dae-soo collapses, and is taken in by her. Dae-soo attempts to flee the apartment, but a sympathetic and intrigued Mido confronts him. Mido explains to Dae-soo that she is romantically interested in him, but that they hardly know each other and she is not ready to be intimate. They reconcile and begin to form a bond. After he recovers, Dae-soo makes an attempt to find his daughter. Discovering that she was adopted, he gives up trying to contact her. Now focused on identifying his offenders, he's looking for the Chinese restaurant that made his prison food. During their journey, Mido is talking to someone on the internet, but Dae-soo seems suspect about this man. Finally, Dae-soo found the restaurant and finds the prison by following a delivery man. It is a private prison, where people can pay to have others incarcerated. Dae-soo tortures the warden, Mr. Park, by taking him 15 teeths for his 15 years in prison. After that, Mr. Park reveals that Dae-soo was imprisoned for talking too much. Dae-soo armed with a hammer against multiple henchmen. He is then attacked and stabbed but manages to defeat them. Gravely injured, Dae-soo is put into a taxi by a man passing by. The man sends the taxi off to Mido's exact address, revealing he is Dae-soo's captor, but Dae-soo is unable to do anything about it in his weakened state. Back at home, Mido nurses him back to health. Dae-soo goes to see his old friend Ju-won in his internet shop, and plays the tape recording for him. Ju-won doesn't recognize the voice, but succeeds in identifying Mido's online chat friend, a person calling himself Evergreen. Dae-soo returns home and tries to violently force more information from Mido, still thinking she is working with Evergreen. Ju-won calls, saying that he has tracked down Evergreen's user ID and found the owner's details. Dae-soo realizes it is an apartment in the building across the street from Mido's apartment. He rushes off and finally meets his captor, a man called Woo Jin. Dae-soo tries to attack, but is incapacitated by Mr. Han, his bodyguard. Woo Jin tells Dae-soo he cannot kill him, because if he does, he will never learn why he was imprisoned, and if he tries to use torture, Woo Jin will remote deactivate the pacemaker he had surgically placed in his own chest. But Woo Jin offers to play a game with Dae-soo. He must find out why all this happened to him in the next 5 days. If he fails, Mido will die on July 5. If he succeeds, Woo Jin promises to kill himself. While leaving, Woo Jin casually remarks that Dae-soo left his front door open. Dae-soo races home and finds that Mr. Park and his gang of thugs have captured and sexually abused Mido. Dae-soo is roughed up, and Mr. Park is about to use the same teeth-pulling torture trick on Dae-soo, when Mr. Han shows up at the door and offers Mr. Park a suitcase full of money, if he leaves. Park takes it, and while leaving, Dae-soo threatens to cut off Park's hand. Dae-soo and Mido leave the apartment. On the road, they grow closer together, and Mido indicates she is ready to make love. After the lovemaking, they are gassed and Woo Jin leaves a package in their room. It contains Mr. Park's severed hand. Dae-soo realizes that Woo Jin can hear every word he says. They go to a shop and have a wire removed from his shoe. The next day, with Mido's help, Dae-soo finds out that Evergreen refers to his old high school, where he discovers Woo Jin was once a fellow student. He calls his friend Ju Won, who confirms the finding, and mentions that Woo Jin's sister, who attended the school at the same time and had a promiscuous reputation, killed herself later. However, due to the not being able to spy on Dae-soo anymore, Woo Jin has gone to Ju Won's internet shop, and enraged over the comments made about his sister, he beats Ju Won to death while having Dae-soo listen over the phone. Strongly suspecting that the reason for his imprisonment has something to do with the sister's death, he has a sudden recollection of memory. One day at school, as it turned out, Dae-soo had unintentionally witnessed Woo Jin and his sister Soo-ah while engaging in a sexual encounter. Dae-soo finally finds out where Woo Jin lives, and confronts him with all of this information. He accuses Woo Jin of creating a search for a memory that was erased using hypnosis. But Woo Jin claims not to have messed with Dae-soo's memory. Dae-soo had simply forgotten it himself because he thought it was insignificant. However, his little slip of the tongue grew out of proportion, to the point where it was rumored that Soo-ah had become pregnant. It was never clear whether this had in fact occurred, but believing it and fearing public humiliation, she killed herself. Dae-soo, however, implies that Woo Jin killed his own sister, afraid of fathering her child, and tried to shift the blame to Dae-soo to cope with the guilt. Woo Jin does indeed possess a photo of Soo-ah on the dam, dated the day of her death, July 5. He took the picture, so he was present at her suicide. But Woo Jin then sidesteps these allegations with an even more devastating revelation. He gives Dae-soo a photo album, the first picture of which is a family portrait of himself, his wife, and his daughter. The remaining photos in the album are of his daughter growing older, until in horror Dae-soo discovers that his daughter is none other than Mido. Mido finds angel's wings in a bag, the same Dae-soo had bought for her 4th birthday. Dae-soo goes into a rage and fights with Mr. Han. Despite being mortally wounded, Mr. Han keeps him subdued, until Woo Jin shoots and kills him. Mido got a similar album to her at Woo Jin's command. Dae-soo is horrified, and begs Woo Jin not to let this happen. He then gets on his hands and knees and starts to bark like a dog, eventually going so far as to cut off his own tongue so that he will never talk too much again. Woo Jin spares Mido from knowing and readies to kill himself and Dae-soo, and gives Dae-soo the remote switch to his own pacemaker. Dae-soo immediately grabs it and uses it, only to find that it doesn't kill Woo Jin, but activates a tape recorder. Woo Jin exits the penthouse in an elevator, leaving Dae-soo alone to be tormented by a tape recording of his incestuous love-making with his own daughter. As Woo Jin leaves, we are taken back into his guilt-ridden memory of his sister's death. He is holding Soo-ah over the dam, trying to save her from killing herself, and realizes that even after getting his revenge against Dae-soo, nothing will take his pain away. And then kill himself. In an epilogue set in a wintry landscape, Dae-soo goes to a hypnotist and asks for her help to forget the secret. He writes her a letter, since he can no longer talk. The hypnotist said that she originally did not want to help him, but she was touched by his last sentence. Even though I'm no more than a beast, don't I, too, have the right to live? Dae-soo wakes up. The hypnotist has already gone, and he is left lying on the cold ground with a delirious feeling. The soft-spoken Mido tells Dae-soo that she loves him, and a large smile appears on his face, which slowly disintegrates into a tortured grimace. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't hesitate to propose other movies.